Hi everybody and welcome to the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey and I've just realized that there's something I need to do on my sound device, but welcome to the show. Sam, how's your week been?
All right, busy as usual, of course. I'm
Hmm.
pretty excited though. We have a fun weekend. We're going to be going to the annual Kitten Rescue Gala event called the Fur Ball at the Skirball, which is, yeah, it's a gala event. It's their big fundraiser for the year. And as one of their top fosters, they have almost always had someone donate tickets for us. So, and we actually found a babysitter, so we both get to go. So I'm pretty excited about that. Beyond that, I've been doing some UGC videos, and I got a free coffee, not a sponsorship of some free coffee. So I'm enjoying the I'm reaping the rewards of my efforts, something like that. How's everything with you?
Everything's going pretty well. It's yeah, I certainly saw some of the content about the coffee, and anyone that knows me knows I'm completely addicted to coffee. So yeah, I mean I'm happy to see that. Yeah, things are going well. It's funny, we're coming up to sort of daylight savings shortly, which is something I'll have to talk to you about after the show as well. But it'll, I'll have the opportunity to sleep in potentially a little bit more, but I, tell that to my body clock. It just wakes up whenever it wants to wake up. But anyway, this is the video and live streaming show. If you are watching live, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. If you want to, you can do this hashtag Team Live versus Team Replay thing if you want to. It's a bit like Fetch. I don't know why I keep trying to make it happen, but indulge me. But today on the show, we're talking all about using the OBS Studio Virtual Camera to sort of change how you show up on web camera. So we're going to talk about how you can sort of incorporate branding elements, calls to action, physically within your web camera frame. So you can use that in basically any software that uses a webcam on your computer. So that's what we're looking at today. So if you are watching live, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And let's just get stuck in because we have so much to cover today.
Sure.
So I guess first of all, let's talk about what OBS Studio actually is. So OBS Studio, it's free and open source software for video recording, live streaming, and for the virtual camera thing that we'll talk about today. You can find this software if you head over to obsproject.com. This is the official place to get it, and I'll just put the banner up really, really quickly. So this is essentially where you can download this software. This software does do a lot of different things. So often it can be a little bit daunting for new people, and I really want to take the fear out of that for you today. So let's not dwell on that too much today. We're going to show you the one application that I think is really, really useful for most people, because you don't really need to understand all the nuances that are in this software to get started. And the virtual camera is a wonderful place to start, and I think it's an opportunity that a lot of people are sort of sleeping on. Let's just check out the chat before we continue, though.
Yeah.
Hello to all the various people that are joining us. So, Insomnia Doodles, great to see you. I want to have a chat with Insomnia Doodles about her new gaming PC at
Oh
some
yeah.
point, but we'll do
There
that
was
later.
there was a whole
Um,
heroic journey to get that thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, so, and Trevor is watching over on LinkedIn. Hello, welcome. Thank you for
Welcome
joining
back.
us. And Saeed is over in Germany, where it is 1 a.m. I love that you join us. I feel a little bit bad that we're interrupting your sleep, but thanks for being here. And I know that Saeed's a big fan of OBS Studio as
Yeah.
well, so that's awesome. Um, your good friend Ryax is
Yep.
quite daunting, which is an interesting thing to say. But there you go. And Insomnia Doodles is tuning in from Indiana. So again, thank you for joining us today. We are going to be talking all about OBS Studio and how you can use that to actually show how you and I really want to call out Trevor this week because again, I allude to the fact that a lot of people are scared of OBS, and to be really honest with you, there are some competitors that like to spread that message, but he
Yeah.
actually, like, he's working with StreamYard and the Hotness Unleashed show over on YouTube and LinkedIn. But essentially, one of the things he used to do in Restream Studio a lot was show the entire chat on the screen. That's not an easy thing to do in StreamYard. So
Sure.
he's actually downloaded it. It took him 10 months apparently to be brave enough to do that, but now he's using the virtual camera sort of as a second camera in StreamYard just to show all the comments on screen. Um,
Yeah, I'll say that on first look, like OBS is the equivalent of buying a 500, page ream of, of paper and like sitting down and going, now I'm going to write a novel. It's just an unbearable blackness that you're looking into. Like, what do I do with this thing?
Absolutely. So and again, you can do an entire production, you can do really elaborate things with it, but we're going to focus just on using the virtual camera, really just creating a single scene. Before we continue, I just want to mention that it is available for Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. So it doesn't matter what platform you're on, you can certainly give that a go. But let's check out this video. So this is a bit of an overview of the journey that we want to take you on today. So again, don't be too overwhelmed. We're just going to focus on creating a single scene, getting your web camera in there, whatever kind of camera you've got going, maybe adding some branding elements and take it from there. Learn how I go from this to this in any software that supports the use of a webcam via OBS Studio. OBS Studio is free and open source software for live streaming, video recording, and changing the way you look on camera. Today, we're going to take a look at the OBS Virtual Camera. In OBS Studio, click the Start Virtual Camera button. In your software of choice, choose OBS Virtual Camera as your camera. Let's build out our scene. To add your camera, go down to the sources, click the plus sign, go to the video capture device. Add a name, click OK, select your camera from the list, adjust your settings. If you need to crop your camera frame, you can hold down the Alt key and drag the edges in. My green screen doesn't cover my entire background, so this is necessary for me. If you're using a green screen, you can right-click on your camera source, go to the filters, add a chroma key filter, and adjust the settings. We can incorporate branding elements via images and text. Let's add a background, a logo, and a promotional image. Go to Sources, hit the plus sign, go to the image, locate the file on your computer, and click OK. If you're using a GIF or PNG file with transparency built in, OBS will recognize that as well. You can adjust the size and position of your image on the canvas. Right-clicking on a source on the canvas will give you a contextual menu with a bunch of helpful options in terms of repositioning a source as well. Sources at the top of the list will appear as the top layer in your scene. In this case, we want to move the background to the bottom of the list so our camera isn't covered up. You can either press the down button or drag and drop the background into position. To add some text, click on the plus sign and select Text GDI+. Add your text. Choose whatever formatting options you like. Click OK. You can now resize and reposition your text. Because our promotional image and text are related, we might like to group these. To group two or more items, click on one source in the list. Hold down the Control key and select the others. Right-click and go to Group Selected Items. You will be prompted to give the group a name. It's always a good idea to give your sources meaningful names so you know what they are. Now you can toggle the visibility of that group by clicking on the eye icon beside it. You can also set up a keyboard shortcut by going to the File menu, selecting Settings, and then going to the Hotkeys category. You can filter by promo, which was the name we gave this group. Click into the Show Promo box, press your keys, repeat this action for the Hide Promo box. Now, when you want to toggle the visibility, you can do this via your keyboard. Bonus tip, if you have an Elgato Stream Deck, you can also set up a button for this as well. For more OBS Studio tips and tutorials, subscribe and ring that bell. Okay, so I mean that's an overview of the kind of things that we want to explore today. So I'm hoping that you won't be too daunted by that. That was like a whole bunch of 4 minutes of overview, and that's really all we want to talk about today. Is how that you can actually sort of change how you show up on camera, and they're very simple things that you can do. But the beautiful thing about the virtual camera specifically is that you can take what you're doing in that frame and bring it into Zoom, bring it into Microsoft Teams, bring it into Skype, bring it into StreamYard, Restream, wherever you happen to be. And, you know, it's not a massively difficult thing to do. I encourage people to sort of think about the branding opportunities and the calls to action. So, you know, if you're on a podcast and somebody says, hey, how do we learn more about you? And you happen to have a lead magnet that's ready to go, and you have a picture of the ebook flash up on screen behind you, and maybe a QR code or a URL that people can go to, that can be really powerful. And people that don't understand how this works will think you're a wizard. So, you know, keep that in mind. A big hello to a few extra people joining us. JP Hightech, who's somebody that's definitely no stranger to all things live streaming, as well as Sher Jones. So, you know, part of, she's actually in the process of creating her own podcast, Your Brand at Work. So that's really awesome. You can check that out as well. Okay, cool. So Trevor's asking a question, and this is probably a little bit outside of the scope of what we're doing today, because I think one of the things I really need to stress, though, is that when you're using the virtual camera, it's only about the visuals.
Yeah.
You can actually have audio and video playing, but they won't sort of come to Zoom or Microsoft Teams natively. You'll have to think a little bit outside of the box for that one. But OBS isn't seeing my external USB mic. Can you look at that? It sees the mic in the USB webcam, however. So again, maybe Trevor, if you want, we can have a look at that a little bit later on. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited because, as I mentioned earlier, Trevor is, and we can't take too much credit for this, but Trevor has, you know, after 10 months of thinking about it, decided to download OBS and actually use it. So that's exciting. And again, I guess the other thing too I want to stress is that it doesn't have to replace anything you're doing. I really want to encourage people to think about it as just another tool in your toolbox. We're talking exclusively about the virtual camera today, but you can record local videos. You can do the live streaming thing as well. So it's incredibly powerful in that regard. So Sam, is there anything else that you think people should know about OBS generally, and again for beginners specifically?
Yeah, I mean, like we kind of touched on earlier, it may look like a whole beast, like this black void that you're looking into, but once you get the basics down, you're going to fly. It's going to be great. And as you come up with new ideas and things to push the boundaries of your live stream or your, you know, recording video, it's going to have that ability. Whereas, you know, some of these other browser-based streaming solutions cap out at a certain production quality level. OBS is like, you want to do like a million things and have video callers come in and push out to 20 different platforms, and you want to have chat on screen, you want to have dynamic content. There's nothing you can throw at me that I couldn't find a solution for.
And that is true, but again, we don't want to daunt anybody, so we're going to stick with the basics today. But I sort of gave Sam that warning before the show. It's like we just need to start simply. I mean, the great thing about it is it really will grow into whatever you want it to do, and there are ways of extending its functionality as well. So we're going to talk some more about actually setting up that initial scene. And again, Saeed is mentioning that you can run this portably, which is definitely true. I was going to attempt to show you a second installation of OBS running. My computer didn't really like that. So we're going to talk you through a number of things, but again, that sort of 4-minute video I will make available elsewhere after the show as well. I'm actually starting a new newsletter on LinkedIn all about learning OBS, so I will have all this content over there as well. But let's come back. We're going to talk about actually setting up our first scene and some of the sources and things you might want to include in there in just a second.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. So when Johan would get on my counter before, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. He loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I'd talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a segment from Sam's podcast, Just Kidding Around, which you can learn more about over at Cute Avalanche. I should say there are probably some people in the audience that know me and don't know you today. So I just want to mention, so Sam uses the power of video and live streaming to promote a lot of work that he does with foster kittens. And you can actually sort of watch these litters of kittens almost 24/7. So head over to cuteavalanche.com. There are all the links and all the exciting things.
Technically more than 24/7 because we have 2 separate streams, one for Twitch and one for YouTube with different cats. So it's like 48/7.
Yes. So I guess, maybe if you've got a monitor, you can split up the screen in half and watch a little bit of both. Okay, so let's talk about OBS. And again, I am going to be talking you through some screenshots predominantly today, just because it's a little bit tricky for me to run the software and share that in real time. So again, this is actually the black box that Sam is referring to. This is what OBS Studio looks like when you first load it up. And it can be a little bit daunting, but it doesn't have to be. And again, we're only focusing on setting up one single scene today and actually incorporating some branding elements, maybe some calls to action, come in and use that virtual camera. So I guess, first of all, the main thing that we probably want to have on this view is you. So it doesn't really matter too much what kind of camera you're using, whether it's a web camera or something a little bit more elaborate. The first thing, and down the bottom here, I might even just see if I can make this full screen so we can talk through it. So down the bottom, in fact, let's go back to the previous slide just to give you full context. So down the bottom here, we've got our scenes and our sources. So we're going to spend all our time in this, our sources box for today. But if you click on this add source button, you actually get a whole bunch of different options here. And we're not even going to talk about half of them today. But essentially, we've got the ability to add things like text and colors and images and slideshows and our video camera. So that's where we're going to start today. Let's talk about actually adding the video camera. And it could be something where maybe, it is literally just a web camera to get started. It could be something more elaborate, and maybe you're using an Elgato Cam Link to get through to that one. But all we want to do is we want to hit the plus sign. We want to go up to video capture device. And we have the option to select our camera from the list. So again, on the screen, you'll see the one that I'm using at the moment, which is the Cam Link 4K, which is just supporting my Sony camera. There are a whole bunch of options in here. There's a really good chance you won't need to touch any of these. The only thing is, for my Logi webcam, I do find that I need to change the resolution and change that to 920, which is literally just a matter of pulling down that drop-down box and starting typing in 1920, and it'll actually complete the whole thing. So yeah, I guess and Sam, I feel like I'm talking a lot, so feel free to jump in at any point.
Sure. I was just going to say, if you are using the Logitech C920 with OBS, something to look out for is every time you start up OBS, you're going to have to go in to configure that camera to turn off the autofocus.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. I've had this webcam, and it's, I don't know, it's always a bit risky when I try to bring props in show you, but
I
essentially this camera here. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. So you know, it's a good starting place if you want to just work with a web camera. But if you do want to work with something else, the Cam Link is a great way of doing that. So once we actually bring this in, one of the things, and you would have seen this from the video earlier if you were around to catch that one, is that the green screen that's behind me, and I'm in front of a green screen 24/7, but the green screen behind me doesn't cover everything that's behind me. So what I do is actually hold down the Alt key and I drag in the edges of this to make sure that, you know, you're not seeing, you know, the clothes and the random keyboard that's behind me. And again, I just want to check in the chat here for a second. So Saeed is saying Team C9 920 or 290. I'm not sure if that's a typo.
I think he just
but his main
that.
camera is the Logitech Brio. It's interesting. I've heard a lot about the Logitech Brio, but I've never actually used it. And I should say, like, this is my reality. I'm always in front of this green screen. You may not need to do this. In fact, most people probably don't. But I'll just show you these steps just so you know for future reference. So if you do actually want to, and I don't have a slide of this actually, but if you wanted to add some effects to this, all you need to do is go to the sources section and right click on our camera source and go to filters, and it'll actually bring up these options for audio and visual filters and effect filters. And for this one, we want to go down to the plus sign with the effect filter and then go to chroma key, and you'll actually just get some options. You don't really need to tweak these very, very much. They're actually pretty good, but it's often a good idea if you do have a green screen just to go in and actually see what this looks like on a light background, on a dark background in OBS, just to see that the settings are okay.
Yeah, and if you do have a second monitor, you can always right-click on your program feed and use the full screen projector to put this on a larger screen so that you can actually get like closer in to like see if there's any noise that you didn't see as when it was small.
Absolutely. But again, like I think, and it's funny, green screens are a touchy subject. Some people love them, some people hate them. Yep. You're all adults. Do what works well for you. I've only got this up here because I'm sort of in front of the side of a bookcase and a door. Like there's nothing good behind me. But I guess the other thing I enjoy about the green screen is that, you know, I can hit a button and I can be inside of a software demonstration. I can actually show you. This isn't just a picture of the website. This is literally the website. So I can sort of scroll up and down. Saeed's asking about the green screen itself. I wish I could tell you definitively. It was very, very cheap. It was like, I don't know, I want to say 80 Australian dollars on eBay. I don't even think it has a brand. I think it's sort of a generic option. But it's worked really well for me, and I haven't really had the need to think about upgrading. Obviously, there are great ones out there from various companies, including Elgato, but this one is very much a budget option. And Cher is telling us about the Brio. So the Brio is amazing. I used the Logitech before the Brio. It's great too. I now broadcast with a Sony ZV-E10, which is the same camera I'm using, and an ATEM Mini as my capture card. Okay, nice. That's really cool. I must admit, the ATEM Mini is an amazing piece of equipment, but I kind of like doing a lot of the camera switching and stuff within the software. But maybe that's just my bias. It's something I would have to make a bit of a change for, but it's certainly another option. And I should say, if you haven't seen Cher's show, like it's amazing, and she's really worked on honing it and getting it down to a craft. So it's really cool. Check her out over on LinkedIn if you haven't already. Okay, so let's how are we going for time? All right, awesome. Let's go back to some of these screenshots and we'll talk you through some of the other things. So now, you know, if you wanted to, you can actually come in and add some images. And obviously, for me here with the green screen gone, I'm sort of floating in nothingness. So again, if we go down to the sources, hit that plus source button again. This time we'll go up to image and we can actually go in and find some images. And for my purposes today, I think... for this demonstration, I had a background image, I had a logo, and I think I had a promotional image as well. So if we click through here, I must admit, it seems like we flick past that one. So let me just talk you through what that basically looks like. Essentially, you go to add the image, and then you can sort of give it a name. It's always a really good idea to give your sources meaningful names in OBS, because if your show does get a little bit elaborate, you'll have a lot of things in there, and you want to know what is what and be able to find them really easily. But essentially, all you need to do from there is actually go and find that file on your computer. If you're using a PNG file or a GIF, OBS Studio will recognize the transparency. And if you have a look at like what I've got on camera right now, the little logo in the corner is its own image. It fills the entire space, but most of that is transparent. I just have the logo there on top. And the great thing about that is that I don't need to resize that whole image. That logo will always be that particular size within my frame. So that's a really useful thing to do. Sam, do you have any tips on incorporating images inside of the scene?
I mean, OBS has so many different ways to like do that like, yeah, like, you know, give some thought into what your needs are. Like, you know, if you have just like a little logo that you want, that's just a media source. You just put in that image source as its own thing. But if you have like, you know, a slideshow, like John just had a presentation, you're going to use, there is a slideshow that you can use, and you can create hotkeys to scroll through those to give it a, you know, an easier flow. You can link those hotkeys to your Stream Deck, which is always good. And you can even have that automated so that it goes on its own. So yeah, just, you know, keep in mind there are several ways to add different things into your OBS and find the one that works best.
Absolutely. And I guess I'm obsessed with my green screen, so I talk about it incessantly, but I know most people won't have them. I guess the important thing for most people is if you do have a scene like Sam that's just him and his background, whenever you're putting images on inside your scene, they're basically going to be on top of the video camera.
Yeah.
Whereas because of the way I've got the green screen, I can actually have things in front of me and behind me. So we can talk about layering a little bit. And again, I'm really sort of hoping that I have a screenshot. Admittedly, I did want to, and maybe we'll even play that video again later on in the show if we need to. But essentially, I might even just jump around a little bit. So, okay, I don't think I have that.
I could green screen myself on my shirt.
You could, and I guess that's the other thing, that there are ways of working with virtual green screens. It's kind of one of the reasons why I started using the virtual camera, though, was that we know that programs like Microsoft Teams have sort of a pretend background removal, and it is so bad. Like if you move even a fraction, it's going to cut off your hair, or it's going to show your entire background. So it's usually a good thing to keep in mind. But again, Saeed is saying, life hack, wearing a green shirt and using a chroma key is a fun experience. And again, I've done that unintentionally in the past, and it's kind of hilarious. But Garen Bellany from Micro Studio often dresses up in an entire green screen and has a green suit, and has great fun with that concept. Okay, cool. So essentially, and again, I apologize that we maybe weren't as organized as we could have been, but I'm going to jump around in these slides just so I can sort of see if I've got an example of a number of different, here we go. Okay, so we'll just ignore this for a second. And I'll just make this full screen. But essentially, you see that the sources, once you have a number of different sources, the important thing to keep in mind is that the one that's on top is going to be on top of everything else. So if you wanted to, and again, we sort of mentioned this in the video at the beginning of the session, but we want to make sure the background is behind me so that it's not covering my camera. And what you can do, you've got these up and down arrows to reposition these. You can also just hold down the mouse button and drag them into position as well. But it's a good idea to keep that in mind. So you don't want to have things that are on top of you that you're perhaps not really expecting. So that's certainly something to keep in mind. And again, you know, as we are sort of getting closer and closer to the spooky season, there's all kinds of green screen fun to be had. So you can be a floating head. And again, I did that by accidentally wearing a fluoro yellow shirt a couple of weeks ago in a meeting. It was hilarious. Of course, Business Growth Ready is saying that the green T-shirt is a cheap Harry Potter invisibility coat. It's literally what it is. Yep. Okay, so how are we going for time? All right, we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other things that you can actually add to your scenes, and we'll do that in just a second.
And then I looked at the first assessment, and the first assessment was record a 5-minute video, and it was a pretty simple introduction of yourself. There was nothing exciting. I didn't have to research. It was just a 5-minute warm-up, and I freaked out. That course is still sitting in the cupboard beside me. I see that stack of papers and I almost rock in the corner. It cost me a lot of money to sign up, and I threw the whole course away.
And that's a promo from my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle. I was talking to Michelle J. Raymond there about getting over her camera fear. And again, another classic person on LinkedIn who seems like a complete professional now, but obviously didn't start that way. So she's got some great tips for you in that episode. You can find out more about that over at johnlacey.com. So this is the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey. I'm joined as always by Sam Proof. Today we're talking about using OBS Studio, which is free and open source software, to really think about how you show up to meetings, how you show up on live shows where your camera is on, and some of the things that you can actually do this with. We do have some questions. I'm actually going to go to these questions first before we continue. So show's asking, have you noticed when using the OBS Virtual Cam that there is a slight lag in the audio timing in Zoom or Teams? I noticed it a long time ago when I played it with it once. Hopefully it has been fixed. I don't really encounter that, and I must admit, every single day in my day job, people only see me via the virtual camera, but potentially if you have a lot of things running on your computer, if you have an older computer, if there are a lot of things sort of open or in the random access memory, the RAM, that could perhaps slow it down. So again, it's probably a good thing to test. But hopefully that isn't too much of an issue. But if it is, reach out to me and let me know, because I'd love to investigate that one a little bit further.
Yeah, I've never noticed that myself, but go on.
Okay, cool. And again, we're talking a little bit about, green screens and green masks. So I have a green mask and shared a video like a week ago here on LinkedIn. Really, really creepy. And this is also true of OBS generally. I don't know how true. I mean, it's not really true of the virtual camera because, as we said earlier, the virtual camera is just about the visuals. So the audio will be handled by whatever microphone or audio device you've set.
Yeah, it is possible to add a delay to the video. It would be tricky to sync that to your Zoom or Teams meeting, but if that was actually an issue, you might have to alter that every meeting or something. So I don't know. But I would think if that's happening, it's something else is going on that computer that's messing with it.
Absolutely. But again, if you, and in some ways our goal for today is just to see if you can give this a go and see what it works like. And again, don't set this up and immediately go live to 10,000 people. Just bring a close personal friend and just check that everything seems to be working. So it's always a good idea to keep that in mind. But like I said, I use the virtual camera every single day between, at least 6 days out of 7 between my full-time job and doing this show. So I don't experience a lot of issues with it. But again, it might be something you need to keep an eye out for. Okay, so let's just let's revisit our slides a little bit, and again, I'm going to have to go back a few. So once we've added our images, we can actually go in and add some text as well. So again, it's pretty straightforward. We go in, we add our text, and it's the source is actually called Text GDI Plus. I don't really know why it's called GDI Plus. I might need to look that up one day, but that's essentially what it's called. You can go in, you can type in your text, you can change all the fonts and colors and different things, and you can sort of reposition it onto the frame. Again, I wish I had a great example to show you, but I think we might actually, a little bit later on before we wrap up today, we might revisit the video from earlier, because I think that is a really good summary. But again, you know, text on screen doesn't sound terribly exciting, but again, I want to sort of get you to think about those calls to action, your website address, you know, how do people actually contact you? And it's a really powerful thing to, you know, not only say it out loud, but also have something on the screen. So whether it says, you know, johnlacey.com or sandproof.tv or cuteavalanche.com, whatever it happens to be, you know. And I love the idea of the lead magnet as well. So combining the image and you know, maybe a website URL, maybe a QR code, something like that.
By the way, I think the GDI Plus thing is a Windows specific text thing, like whatever a text codex is or something along those lines. Because as far as I remember, the Mac doesn't have that. Like that's one of the bigger differences in OBS from PC to Mac.
Okay, cool. But I assume Mac still has
has
text.
text
Option.
Yeah, it's slightly less comprehensive. Like from what I remember, you can't add like outline, stroke, or you know, shadow and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And again, this thing is straight from the video. And again, I think we definitely will need to replay this again before the end of the episode. But once you've actually got a number of sources on the canvas that maybe relate to each other, and again, those calls to action, those lower thirds are a great example, you can actually group these together. So what you do is you select one of the sources, hold down the control key, and then right click and go to group selected items. From here, you'll actually have an option to give this a name. And again, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face, but give it a meaningful name so you know what it is later on. And the great thing about this is that once you've actually got those options in there, you actually have a little visibility icon that'll show you how you can actually sort of toggle these on and off the screen. And again, like, you know, I don't think I've actually got the text on the screen at the moment, but I can literally, and again, I need to be careful when I do this, but I've got my Stream Deck here on the desk. This is the extra large version. I can hit a button on here, which I think is called podcast. And there you go. You see the artwork from my podcast there. Again, I could have included like some text or a QR code as well. Speaking of QR codes though, and again, I'll take that off the screen. Let's talk about that because obviously you can add them to your screen, you know, anywhere, any website online where you can go and generate a QR code. You can save it as an image and put that on there as well. But I just wanted to mention that there is a script that you can add to OBS Studio to do this for you.
And just for people who aren't familiar with OBS, you can customize your OBS experience through either scripts or plugins. Plugins are more along the lines of an extension that is like hardwired into the system of OBS, and scripts are sort of like an external thing that are embedded. So there you go. Go on, John.
Awesome. Yep. No, that's great context. So I just wanted to mention really briefly that we have this OBS Lua QR code source. Basically, if you go to the obsproject.com website, you can find this script. You can download it to your computer. If you go to the tools menu, go to scripts, add it in here. So just hit the plus sign, find the script, and go close. And then in sort of much the same way that we have the ability to add images and text, we will now have the ability to add a QR code dynamically into our scene. And this is basically what this looks like. So again, if you go to the add source option, go to where it says QR code, again, give it a meaningful name, make sure it's visible, click OK. And then basically the options here are pretty basic, but they're quite useful. So you can put in the website URL. You can select a theme color and a background color, and also a margin. And that's really, really powerful because if somebody is watching on their TV or their computer and they have their phone free, they can just hit the go into the camera, press a button, and go directly to that place. And I think I'm sure we've done entire shows on on calls to action, but the worst thing I've seen in a live stream is somebody put up an Amazon link. And it was like 5 lines of just random gibberish. And it's like, nobody is typing that out, people. You need to think about it. So if you do need to have URL on the screen, make sure it's short, make sure it's memorable. You could use a shortening link if you wanted to, but certainly keep that in mind.
This is good. Saeed says, a pro tip here for Chrome users: open a window or a website, click the share button, which is at the top right after the URL, and you can generate a QR code and save it. Literally takes 10 seconds. Or you could do it in OBS. It takes 2 seconds.
That's a great tip. I did not know that
is a
one.
great tip.
So
I didn't
thank
know
you
that
for
either.
sharing that. That's
and
awesome.
I just tried it. And I was like, well, look at that. That's fantastic. And that would be Mac or PC as well, obviously. The interesting thing about doing it in OBS via script is if you are a coder at all, you could probably update that to be dynamic field. And then if you had like a bunch of QR codes you were going to go through that show, you could link it to a button that would like advance it every time you press that button to the next code.
I mean, you certainly could, but again, don't scare off the newbies, Sam.
Sure.
Nice and basic for today.
Nice and basic.
Although, let's talk more about the virtual camera, and I know that Sam's got a great video here about that. Let me just find that one and we'll watch that and we'll come back and talk about it some more. So that one is this one here.
I'm going to show you how I use OBS Virtual Camera for my Dungeons and Dragons game. So check this out. We're going to go into OBS. You can see I've got a second camera here. On the side here, I have the possible buffs and debuffs that might happen to me during a game. And down at the bottom here, I have a bunch of the results of those things. This lets my party see where I'm at, what I'm capable of during this combat, and what they might need to do to help me out, and vice versa. I activate all of these through my Stream Deck and a chat program called Mix It Up app. And if you want to see how I do that with a in-depth tutorial, let me know in the comments and I'll follow up with another video. All I have to do from here is share this screen. Right now, we're just in OBS. We'll start our virtual camera as John has showed you how to do before. And I'll go into my Zoom window. We'll do a meeting of just one. But of course, this would work for, any D&D platform. You could do this in Roll20 or any of the other TTS. And we'll hit that in our camera. We'll go down and find OBS Virtual Camera. We'll turn the camera on. And there I am in a Zoom call with all of my buffs and debuffs ready and the results ready for my party to see. They would show up in the other windows here. And if you want to see more fun ways to use OBS and do live streaming, join John Lacey and me every Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time over at youtube.com/samproof/live. Back to us. Great. I did my mic hit during the video.
And I've got I'm just going to be honest. I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, but clearly, it's not massively difficult to use that virtual camera option. So again, just going to throw something up on the screen. It's a two-step process. Basically, over on the left-hand side here, we've got the OBS controls. Just go down, hit that Start Virtual Camera option. That will make it available. Over on the right-hand side of this screen, you'll see this is actually the zoom settings. So again, you could use this in just about anything that supports a web camera. And if you do see this blue rectangle with the OBS icon here, it basically just means you haven't hit that Start Virtual Camera button yet. So in some ways, that's really good because you can make sure that you're not sending out your video feed until you're completely ready to do that. But if you ever see that, if you ever turn on your camera and that's what you see, it's just a reminder to go back and hit that Start Virtual Camera option. But in some ways, it literally is that simple. So, and
really quick, while we're talking about that specific aspect, when you do the virtual camera, you can actually choose if you're a more experienced OBS user and you've created different scenes and sources and stuff, you can actually set it to a specific scene or a specific source. So in a weird use case, maybe you're live streaming and you've got some kind of like playlist you can go to, and suddenly you have to take a video call. You could do that so that your stream is not interrupted and your viewing audience doesn't see you on that call.
Okay, I'm just going to check in with the chat. So Insomnia Doodles is saying I use OBS Virtual Camera to be able to use my virtual avatar in video calls. And in fact, if you haven't seen Insomnia Doodles in action, find her on Twitch. She has a really interesting setup, and I guess because I'm sort of working on, from a business background, I always want to see me on camera, but she doesn't want to do that. So she actually has a little virtual avatar, which is really, really quite fun. Trevor over on LinkedIn is saying that's a terrific idea for internal company Zoom calls. Could be way too much fun. Didn't know Zoom supported virtual cameras. So a couple of things on that. One, as I said, I'm always in front of this green screen. I'm always going via the virtual camera. For my day job, we have these beautiful backgrounds of sort of branded backgrounds of natural landscapes, and most people use the Microsoft Teams option and just have the solid one behind them. I actually go in and use the image slideshow, and I select all 5 or 6 of them, and I have a very slow transition time between the image slideshow. So it's very, very subtle. And 9 times out of 10, they won't even notice, but that 10th time, they think I'm a genius. And I feel bad because it is so easy to set up. And again, you could use that as a background. You could also use that as a foreground. It could be a banner image. I'm going to do a newsletter on that probably next week. But essentially, you can also include transparent GIFs inside your slideshow. So you could go promotion 1, blank, promotion 2, and this is all happening in a specific time range, or auto-magically, as I like to say. So that's really, really cool. But the other thing too, and I don't think I've actually got it set up on. Yep. The other thing too, though, is that, and some of you may have seen this on LinkedIn, I made a little, like a really, really long time ago, I made a little GIF that basically has me playing 4 versions of myself. One person is talking and they're clearly muted, and the other 3 actually hold up signs that come together and say, "You're on mute." And I literally have a button for my day job OBS scene that animation pops up on screen when I need it. So you can do that. You can have all kinds of funny internal jokes. Also, and I mentioned this to somebody during the week, but I've got the Rodecaster Pro and I've got the sound pad, and I do have a beep button on the sound pad, so I can just beep it out, and it can be hilarious in meetings if you've got the right audience for that sort of thing.
Yeah, and like this thing that I'm about to show you, it can be used for serious things like presentations, or you can use it to send yourself a cup of coffee during a Zoom meeting, like our friend over here. Hang on one second. All right. Anyway.
So yes, I mean, you can do quite sincere, serious things with it, but you can have fun with it too. I mean, it's just a tool at the end of the day. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So, and again, I've been using Zoom as an example throughout because it's, those settings are easy enough to find. I don't use Zoom on a day-to-day basis. We just got a comment here that sometimes it may look different, and it's. I guess the thing that's important to keep in mind is that you just always test these things. Okay, so, again, just a couple of things to note about the virtual camera. It is visuals only, so while you can play a video or sound effects, they won't natively be sent over to your software. So if you do want people to hear things, you'll need to think about something else. So, but basically, that's the thing. You've got the power to rearrange your scene. Again, there are some very simple reasons that I use it. And one is just cropping out the backgrounds. One is, sort of compensating the fact that I'm in front of this green screen. But that's sort of all happening. But again, like, the branding opportunities, the calls to action are the things that I really want to stress for our audience today. So, was there anything that we wanted to say about that, Sam, before we move on to our next segment?
No, I had that video. I'm good.
Okay, cool. All right, let's talk about showing and hiding stuff. So again, I mentioned, and Sam's going to demonstrate this in a second, but, I've got this beautiful Stream Deck extra large. I can set up buttons on here to do all kinds of things in OBS and beyond. And, one of the ones that I mentioned is just that I have my podcast images, the artwork there in the corner. I can do that with a click. Again, you can actually set up keyboard shortcuts, and you can just click on the eye icon that's in there as well. So, Sam, can you maybe show us?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're still sharing that.
Yeah, I brought it back.
There we go.
I was just timing it because I knew it would go live immediately, which I learned when I tried to put that video in. But yeah, so that is the software that controls the Stream Deck, this right here. So those buttons match up to the buttons that you're seeing on the screen. And we'll go over to a page where I have just some blanks. So, and I'll hit the mic like 3 or 4 more times. All right. So what you're going to do, let me scroll up for a more true experience. You'll have a bunch of these things on the side and you'll navigate down to your OBS Studio. Oh gosh, I just closed it. Here it is. And we're just going to grab a source visibility button. Throw that right here. It'll take a second to load and we can add our title. We're going to call this website. And we're going to find the scene we want to work from. And then within that scene, it pulls up all the possible sources. I'm going to grab this one, which happens to be my website. And now I'm moving that around. It's messing up on the thing. And now when I hit that button, let's do this so you can see it and hit the mic again. It will, in my virtual cam, pop up my website right there. So, and that's just a browser source. So I could interact with this live. I could go in and scroll through the website, click through different pages and stuff if I wanted to point something out to a potential client or fellow team member. So yeah, and it's a simple toggle on and off.
Absolutely. And again, it's the Stream Deck. It is a bit of an investment, but it's such an amazing productivity tool. We've done an entire show on it in the past. There are all kinds of different models that you can actually use. There's the mini, which has, I think, 6 buttons on it from memory. Yep. There's all kinds of versions of it. There's the Plus, which has knobs and a touchscreen on it as well. But the great thing is you can program those buttons to do all kinds of really, really useful things. And again, as a content creator, it can be really, really useful to have those things happening there. So,
yeah, and we've done extensive talks in different shows about the Stream Deck, and it's not just a one hit like, oh, I did one thing and one thing shows up. You can program those buttons to do a multitude of things.
Mm-hmm. Sayed's saying the app is also great, $3 a month. The only thing that annoys me about the app is it is iOS only, and I don't.
That's true.
I don't Apple anything. But that's I've been hounding them to do something on Android, but yep. It is really a great thing that you can try out. So that's definitely worth considering. Again, this feels incredibly trivial, but I just want to show you like the fun that you can actually have in meetings. So I mentioned what this was a second ago, but let me just play it. And again, I'll narrate it for the people that might be listening to the audio version of the podcast, but there are 4 versions of me on the screen, and one is talking incessantly with the mute button. The other 3 hold up a sign that says you're on mute. And when I spoke about actually adding graphics to the scene, OBS supports most graphics formats, including animated GIFs. So that's literally all that one is. So you can have all kinds of fun with that sort of thing, and it can be a great team building exercise too if you want to have a little bit of fun with all of that. Okay, so I don't think we've got any more questions in the chat. If you have questions, we are beginning to wrap up, so let us know quickly. But where can people find out more about you, Sam, and watch your content and do all of that good stuff?
Sure. Well, now that I've got that button, I can do it on my side. But we also have one in in StreamYard itself that's better. You can go over to samproof.tv, and all of my social links are right at the top on the left there. You'll find me streaming on Twitch and posting vertical videos on YouTube and TikTok and things like that. But also, if you like the cats, head over to cuteavalanche.com and support our foster journey and watch some cute cats any time of day.
Awesome. And if you want to catch up with anything I'm doing, you can head over to johnlacey.com. We've got a bunch of articles about OBS and some other things there as well, and the podcast. If you head down to the bottom of that page, you'll find the social media links that you can check out to all of the various places. But as I did allude to earlier, I am starting an OBS Studio specific newsletter on LinkedIn. So if you want to head over to my LinkedIn, follow or connect, whatever you want to do, head over to johnlacey.com/LinkedIn. And I'll have sort of more detailed instructions about the kinds of things that we spoke about today, and also the video, which I think, you know, I'm just going to check with... So there's a comment here, you should give the cats a Stream Deck. That would be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if the Stream Deck wasn't hardwired and it was like a USB-C where I knew if the cats chewed through the cable, I could replace it easily, I would totally do that and like make a bunch of sounds and GIFs that they could pop up on screen. I could even make a button that sent a webhook to an automatic feeder and things like that. So yeah, that would be a good idea. Not currently.
I mean, let's be real. The Stream Deck is a bit of an investment, so I don't know if I'd want to be giving it to the kittens to play with. But yeah, I guess it's up to you. It could be kind of funny. So I guess like our objective in some ways today, you know, you don't need to commit to OBS, but it is literally free. You have nothing to lose. Head over to obsproject.com and download it. Try it out. If you hate it, you never have to use it again. You can uninstall it. If you like it, if you want to learn more, let us know in the chat, and we're happy to cover that in future shows. And especially like Trevor, if you want to send me a message on LinkedIn, that USB mic thing, I'd love to hear more about that. But we might actually just leave you with that overview video again, because I think that was really worthwhile, if that's okay with you, Sam.
Yeah, go ahead. We've said what we
awesome.
have to say.
Yep.
We'll
So we'll play this.
week.
We'll come back, and we might come back and just say goodbye properly in a second. But again, these are the steps, and give it a go, because there's nothing to be lost, and it's not as scary as a lot of people will have you believe.
Yeah.
Learn how I go from this to this in any software that supports the use of a webcam via OBS Studio. OBS Studio is free and open source software for live streaming, video recording, and changing the way you look on camera. Today, we're going to take a look at the OBS Virtual Camera. In OBS Studio, click the Start Virtual Camera button. In your software of choice, choose OBS Virtual Camera as your camera. Let's build out our scene. To add your camera, go down to the sources, click the plus sign, go to the video capture device. Add a name, click OK, select your camera from the list, adjust your settings. If you need to crop your camera frame, you can hold down the Alt key and drag the edges in. My green screen doesn't cover my entire background, so this is necessary for me. If you're using a green screen, you can right-click on your camera source, go to the filters, add a chroma key filter, and adjust the settings. We can incorporate branding elements via images and text. Let's add a background, a logo, and a promotional image. Go to Sources, hit the plus sign, go to the image, locate the file on your computer, and click OK. If you're using a GIF or PNG file with transparency built in, OBS will recognize that as well. You can adjust the size and position of your image on the canvas. Right-clicking on a source on the canvas will give you a contextual menu with a bunch of helpful options in terms of repositioning a source as well. Sources at the top of the list will appear as the top layer in your scene. In this case, we want to move the background to the bottom of the list so our camera isn't covered up. You can either press the down button or drag and drop the background into position. To add some text, click on the plus sign and select Text GDI+. Add your text. Choose whatever formatting options you like. Click OK. You can now resize and reposition your text. Because our promotional image and text are related, we might like to group these. To group 2 or more items, click on one source in the list. Hold down the Control key and select the others. Right-click and go to Group Selected Items. You will be prompted to give the group a name. It's always a good idea to give your sources meaningful names so you know what they are. Now you can toggle the visibility of that group by clicking on the eye icon beside it. You can also set up a keyboard shortcut by going to the File menu, selecting Settings, and then going to the Hotkeys category. You can filter by promo, which was the name we gave this group. Click into the Show Promo box, press your keys, repeat this action for the Hide Promo box. Now when you want to toggle the visibility, you can do this via your keyboard. Bonus tip, if you have an Elgato Stream Deck, you can also set up a button for this as well. For more OBS Studio tips and tutorials, subscribe and ring that bell. Okay, hopefully that all made sense, but let us know if you've got questions. We'd love to hear from you, and if there are particular things you'd like us to cover in future shows, let us know about that as well. But have a great week, a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.
See you next Friday.